Hello everybody, I am not dead yet, and today I am talking about Revival Fitness's recent video, You Are Not a Better Person Because You Stay Natty, because this video seems to have kind of divided the YouTube fitness space a little bit. Natural Hypertrophy made a response to it, and then Revival Fitness made a response to Natural Hypertrophy. I've had a lot of people DM me their thoughts on the video, asking me what I think, asking what if I've seen it and what I thought of it. So here I am making this video, and honestly, I think I'm going to surprise a lot of people with what I think, a lot of people with my take, because I honestly agree with a lot of what Revival Fitness said. I agree with him. And a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I think he was like subtly promoting steroids and projecting that he wanted to go on steroids or whatever. Even if that's true, I don't know. I don't really care. I agree with a lot of the points he made, because honestly, if I didn't, I'd be a massive hypocrite. And people are gonna be like, oh, well, Eli, are you trying to say that you're not natural, that you're on PEDs, or that you're considering PEDs? No, I'm perfectly natural, but I'm a boxer. And then people are going to be like, oh, well, what does that have to do with taking PEDs? Oh, yeah, you're right. Like, because I'm natural, I don't have to worry about things like my blood markers, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, heart attack, none of that. I just have to worry about brain damage as a boxer. You see, it's stupid, because, like, I've been boxing for damn near 20 years now, 18 years, and for the vast majority of my life, I've been taking weekly beatings from people who are 10 years older than me, at least 10 pounds heavier, multiple times a week. I probably have some form of brain damage currently, and even if I don't, I am walking down a path where the longer I walk down it, the more likely it's going to be that I'm going to suffer some form of brain damage in the future. But even if I don't, or whether that brain damage is minimal, it's also highly likely that no matter what happens, my brain will not be the same as it would have been had I not been taking punches my entire life. And even if we exclude the whole brain damage aspect of things, I'm currently walking down a path that puts my physical health at risk, right? I am walking down the path of an extreme. But I am willingly walking down the path of that extreme because there is a goal I have in my head, and that there are sacrifices that are necessary in order for me to achieve that goal. And I respect anybody who walks down a road that requires immense sacrifice, sometimes even at the cost of their life. They willingly walk down that road because for them, the goal that they have, or that achievement that they want to do, or even just what they are doing, they love that enough that it is worth it for them to risk their life. I have a ton of respect for that, because again, it's exactly what I am doing. Extremes are not healthy, and I am walking down the path of an extreme, and so are the people who take PEDs, because PEDs, I believe, in any form is an extreme. And I know that, like, in the Natural Hypertrophy Revival Fitness kind of debate, there's this whole like, oh, well, there's such a thing as a small cycle and small doses. Aside from doctor prescribed HRT and stuff like that, the vast majority of people, if you don't need it, because again, like, if you're an old man and you're prescribed TRT by your doctor or whatever, that's a separate issue, in my opinion. Someone choosing to go on PEDs, SARMs, or whatever, for the sake of a physique or for the sake of achieving a goal is an extreme. And extremes are not healthy. So while at the end of the day, I do agree with someone like Natural Hypertrophy who preaches staying natural and maxing out being natural and a more moderate approach to training that is focused more on sustainability and longevity, I understand why some people would go on PEDs, because there are just some things that are not possible without them. You're not making it to the Olympia natural. Unless they create a natural division, the way things currently are, you are not going to be Mr. Olympia natural. It's just how the world works. You're not going to make it to the top of strongman, world's strongest man, or the Arnold Classic natural. Unless, again, they have a natural division. I'm not too well versed in that. You're not going to break world records in powerlifting unless you want to say, I broke the natural powerlifting record. But the big question is, how many people care about that? Oh yeah, sure, you bench pressed, I don't know what the records are. You bench pressed 900 pounds, but the guy on gear bench press 1,100 pounds. It's like people want to see the extremes of the extremes. I do think that a natural division would help a lot if there isn't one in place already. But the fact of the matter is, in the real world nowadays, there are some goals that you cannot achieve without using PEDs. And I have a lot of respect, immense respect, for the people who weigh the pros and cons, who do their research, who know what they're getting themselves into, and decide, you know what, yes, I am going to walk down this road anyway. Because I've seen a lot of people get up on their high horse about being natural. I've talked to somebody, this happened last year, and he was like, oh, I'm going to be natural forever. I'll never touch PEDs. Because, I mean, look at Arnold. He looks like shit now. And I was like, well, I mean, he's in his, like, 70s or 80s now, right? I think he looks pretty good for his age. And it pisses me off when people talk like that, because it's like, how dare you, somebody who is unwilling to risk his life to achieve greatness, going to point, gawk, and laugh at someone who is willing to lay it all on the line for the sake of a dream. How dare you? It pisses me off, frankly. Now, I do think that PEDs are way too prevalent where they don't need to be, especially in regards to teenagers and children. I think that part of that is a little bit involved in gym culture, however, in things of like pre-workouts and taking supplements and getting all wrapped up in that. I see a lot of kids, like if you're 13, you don't need to be taking pre-workout and testosterone and creatine. You can, but like I don't think it's necessarily needed. I think a lot of it is kind of built up on this gym hype of being part of a culture, whereas and the natural continuation of that with the way kind of gym culture is laid out makes PEDs look a lot more enticing, especially with a lot of the models that we see that are openly honest about it, being on PEDs. People like Sush and James English, even people like Greg and Noel Diesel, they've talked about the danger of being honest about your PED use. So, while I do agree that you are not a better person because you stay natural, you are just somebody who made a different choice in life, unless you are really trying to achieve an extreme goal, I do not think PEDs are necessary. I just frankly don't. And while sure, like I said, it would be hypocritical of me to denounce people who use PEDs for the sake of a goal while I myself am walking down a road that could give me health problems down the line, all for the sake of a goal, I also want to be clear that I do not promote what I do. In fact, I kind of show myself as a case study of, hey, you don't want to do this. What I am doing is incredibly difficult, and only a select few people can really actually do it, not just in terms of being willing to get hurt, but also in terms of the amount of dedication needed to train every day, the amount of sacrifice you're willing to give up, the amount of your life that you're willing to just leave behind and sacrifice for the sake of your goals. For example, in Revival Fitness's response to natural hypertrophy, he talks about how, well, if you're against PEDs, you better be against smoking and drinking, which I am. I do not smoke. I've never smoked cigarettes, never smoked weed. I don't juul, and I encourage people not to, and I do not drink either. All for the sake of my goal, right? And so I talk about how I live my life, and I say this isn't necessarily healthy. If you remember my interview with Brendan Gage, I said, is what I'm doing healthy? Am I healthy? I'm fit. But if we talk about health in terms of a sum of its parts, in terms of, being able to enjoy life in moderation and whatnot, I don't think I'd call what I'm doing healthy. I don't think any pro athlete is really healthy. They dedicate their entire lives to their sports. And even just in terms of mental health, that becomes incredibly difficult because your life, we talk about moderation in terms of being balanced, but being a professional athlete requires your life to be, for lack of a better term, unbalanced. you need to put a lot of focus and dedication into your sport. And so, unless you are actively trying to go down this extreme to achieve something, and you know for a fact that that is what you want to do, and that you can do it, don't do PEDs. It's not worth it. It just isn't. And in that sense, yeah, sure, you are better than the people on PEDs. But at the same time, it doesn't make you a better person. It just makes you somebody with different priorities in life. And along with that, along with the different priorities and that you need to be sure you can do this, that doesn't mean, oh yes, I want it more than anything, I'm going to take it. That means doing things gradually, continuing to ramp it up as time goes on to see if you can actually withstand the pressure. I'm talking like Greg saying he did like 49 bodybuilding shows natural before he decided to touch anything. That is the level of, yes, I love this, this is what I'm willing to do, levels of stuff that you need to be super sure before you decide to walk down the path of these extremes. Because it's very easy to say, oh yes, I want this now, give it to me, I will always want this for the entirety of my life, and then you start doing it, you realize what it actually takes to do it and go, oh crap, what did I get myself into? And then suddenly you're on PEDs, you screwed over your hormones, you potentially crashed for life, and you fucked yourself over. Terrible thing. And I see this all the time in boxing, actually. Again, it's not the same as PED use, but everybody comes in wanting to spar. They come in, when can I spar? When can I get into the ring and fight? And one of two things happen with those people, usually. They either get bored of the training it takes to actually build yourself up to be able to properly spar and they quit, or they're so incessant and obnoxious that I just get annoyed and say, okay, you want to spar? Glove up. I'll give you an example. There was a guy who came into my boxing club. This was years ago, right? And he kept like almost every class he would ask about sparring. So eventually the head coach of that club said, you know what? You want to spar? Fine. Spar. Eli, you glove up. And so I got ready to spar. And keep in mind, this guy is somebody who is in his mid-30s, heavy set, and tall. I'd say at least 6 feet, maybe 6'1", 6'2". I'm 5'7", 150 pounds. Dude has a big gut, but he was stocky, right? He's thinking like, oh, powerful, right? So we get into the ring, and boom, he just unleashes this massive haymaker that's like, whoa, like this guy's trying to hurt me. And he gives me this like, oh yeah, I'm powerful, right? And I'm kind of like, okay, so you want to play that way? I slip his jab, I throw a simultaneous jab counter, I hit him square in the face, duck under his jab, boom, spleen shot, boom, liver shot, boom, overhand right. And he's like, okay, and he keeps the smile on his face throughout the entire round. We sparred for 1 minute, the guy's form was terrible, his hands were like this, and I was landing power shots. Every shot I landed was powerful, landing at will, right? After that 1 minute, the round's over, and the coach goes, you want to go again? The guy that was so excited to spar said, no, glove down, never sparred me again. Too scared. And that's this type of shit that I'm worried about when it comes to people who are like, oh yes, I want that physique. I want to go to the Olympia. I want to do bodybuilding. And so they do all these PEDs, all these drugs, and then they start the diet and they realize, oh my God, I hate dieting. And then suddenly they're screwed. They don't love it as much as they thought they would. On a smaller scale to this that I see all the time with people that I've coached and people that I've talked to is willing to spend money in terms of boxing. I had a girl who does fitness, not on YouTube anymore though. She was like, she wanted to buy like $150 shoes and like $100 boxing gloves, and I'm like, I know, like, get yourself a pair of like $30 wrestling shoes. That's basically all boxing shoes are. Or like, I have a buddy, my friend Paul, who went into his first fight in a pair of regular sneakers. Real boxers don't care. At the time, I was using a pair of mismatched boxing gloves, but it didn't matter because they were the same ounce, the same weight, doesn't matter. Real boxers don't care. And I tried to explain that to her, and she got super upset because she, she was like, oh, I wanted to prove it to you. And it's like, well, prove it to me by being dedicated and training. Don't prove it to me by spending a bunch of money. And that's the same thing I see with a lot of these people, or that's the same advice that I would give to a lot of these teens who are really excited to hop on PEDs and get their dream physique. If you really love this, prove it by doing everything you can natural first. And I know Natural Hypertrophy says don't give this time limit, and I'm not going to give a time limit, because honestly, I do not think, one, I'm not qualified enough to be like, oh, okay, you've maxed out your gains after X amount of time, but also I think that it should really be more of a process than a destination. Anything is more of a process than a destination. It's about the journey. If you hate the journey, the destination is going to mean absolutely fuck all. And for those of you wondering how I know that I want to walk down this path, I actually tried to walk away from boxing for 2 years, and it felt like something was missing. And I would always say, even after I quit boxing, thought I hated the sport, would never box again, I would always say that I was a boxer. I would always say things like, oh, I could make it far in pros, and it eventually got to the point where I decided, you know what, put your money where your mouth is, because to me, not knowing was worse than finding out the answer. I couldn't live without knowing, so I decided to put my money where my mouth was. And even when I started, I was very conscious of the fact that, hey, maybe once I start, I'll realize that I really don't want this life. I really don't want to train this way anymore, and I'll go back, and at least I'll have my answer. But here I am still training. So, my point is, no, you aren't a better person because you stay natural. Yeah, you're probably healthier, probably, depending on what you do. Do you get blackout drunk every Friday and Saturday night? I know people like that. Oh, I'd never touch PEDs. Meanwhile, they're smoking fucking pot and drinking every weekend. I know somebody who fucking did, she's not a gym bro, but I know somebody who did fucking coke, weed, and got drunk all in the same time. And it's like, oh, I don't know her. I went to high school with her, and I heard that she did that years later. But anyway, if you're looking down on people for that, for the sake of a goal, for the sake of a dream, while you yourself are going out doing reckless shit, living kills us. And no, that doesn't mean you should actively try to shorten the time that you're alive. But you also have to realize that at the end of the day, we're all picking our poison. And so no, I don't think you should go and recklessly do a bunch of stupid shit. But note recklessly. If you are well informed, if you are an adult, and if you know what you're doing, go right ahead. I mean, it's the same thing with people overeating, really. Like, if you're an adult and you want to eat yourself into an early grave, who's going to stop you? Are you a worse person because you ate one too many Big Macs? And obviously it's not one too many, we all know that. But you know what I mean. Anyway, that's just my view on the whole situation. I think that Revival Fitness is actually right in this one. That the moral high ground for you staying natural is a little superfluous, arbitrary, and frankly just kind of stupid. However, I do agree a lot with natural hypertrophy in the sense that you shouldn't view people who take a bunch of PEDs as role models for how to live a happy, healthy life, and that we should encourage people to stay away from those extremes. And the people who are walking down the path of extremes should at least be open and honest with themselves and the people that they influence about what they're doing and the risks involved with what they're doing. But that's all I have to say for this video. Thank you very much to all of my Patreon supporters, including my brand new Patreon supporter. His name is Sakari Kempas. I really hope I said that right. Sakari Kempas. Thank you very much. Again, to everyone who supports me, it really does mean the world. If you want to, you can check out all the ways to do that in my description. But until next time, I am not dead yet. And if you are not either, there is always a tomorrow waiting for you.